Hey everybody, it's Lissa, and I just wanted to do a quick kind of little tour of some of the journals I've kept, and maybe it will inspire you to start in your own and just see some of the types of journals you can use. I've used so many different kinds of journals. I must have over 100 journals now on my library shelf, and this is probably one of the first ones I ever started. This one was actually made by my sister, and she hand-stitched all the leather on there and sewed the paper into the binding all on her own, and it's one of my favorite journals because it's so big, so you feel like you have a lot of space to work with. So this was actually done probably when I was 19 or 20, back before I considered myself artistic at all. So as you can see, it starts off being mostly just a lot of writing, and I love the book so much that I I wanted to write small so I could, so I would never run out of room. And eventually I started getting more experimental and adding some drawings in there, adding some clippings, but it's a lot of words to start out with. She actually hand stained each page with tea, and that's one of my favorite tricks. If you're like me and you like things that look a little bit vintage, a little older, tea staining pages is always a fun thing just to try out and see what it looks like. I just love drawing on pages that have some character to them. So that's one of my first journals that I ever started. I got a little more confident after starting that one, and moved into more art journaling because I wanted to improve my artistic skills, like so many of you. So I started a journal kind of strictly for art, less emphasis on the words. And one of my favorite things to do is collaging because it's just so fun to put things together, piece them together and make them work and see things as a composition and try to make it look aesthetically pleasing to the eye. So that's one of my favorite things to do in visual journals. I bought some of these rub-on letters using old stamps, translucent paper, photographs, whiteout. I think for this kind of texture I just dipped a string in black ink and started dancing it all across the page just to give it a kind of dreamlike quality. Let's see what else I got in here. Ooh. This one, more translucent paper, old letters. I love the way some of these rub-on letters look. Old photographs I had taken. I was really into 40s fashion at that time, old kind of fashion models from the 40s, and just arranging things is into kind of a collage that looks beautiful is one of the most fun things I think you can do. This is when I was into The Little Prince and I wanted to make a page as an ode to him. This is a complete mess up, but that happens. I can always go back and kind of try again, start over again with those pieces. There's another page, clippings from old letters, old photographs. I think I just used whiteout too, right across the top of the pages there. Here's some of my friends from college. Took some old letters and just cut out my favorite lines because old letters are hard to hang on to, but sometimes you just have a beautiful line or a memory captured and you want to save them. So finding those old letters and using striking words or sentences or putting them together in new ways is always a wonderful thing to do. This is when I wanted to do kind of a page on Ophelia from Hamlet when I was working on that at university for a paper. And this was just one of the most fun journals I ever had doing because it was just pure, intuitive creation. So it was just going with the flow, putting on some good music, and just getting into what I was doing. And not worrying too much about the outcome, but just purely having fun with it. I was really into iconography and old Russian icons and trying to emulate that. Old letters, poems, stamping, cutouts. So I'll move along quick because I got to make this video relatively short, but this is just an example of, a kind of art journal that you can explore if you want to. You can also, one of my favorite things is to paint in poetry books, because I just feel like when I love poetry, but sometimes I feel like something is missing, and sometimes that something is a piece of art. So some of my favorite poems, I've just decorated the page illustrating the poem, and in a way it's a kind of journal all on its own. Let's see. These little tiny books are great to keep on hand, so that if you're just on the bus or at a, waiting in line somewhere, you can just grab it, take it, jot out a few things, and do it for quick sketches. I love to have something small so that when you're on the go, you always have a journal on hand, because we do get in those situations where we have a free moment and we can just do some quick sketches. Some of my other journals here. Here's one from Greece that I saved. I love to pick up journals from other countries, because then you've got these wonderful little relics of a time spent in a certain country that you can hang on to. And, this memory, this was on Bornholm actually in Denmark, and this memory, this old farmhouse, in the evening we stayed there and ate licorice and lit candles. I remember that night now looking at the picture, but if I had never painted it, I would have forgotten that memory a long time ago. So that's another benefit to visual journaling, is that you get to hang on to these memories that you would have lost if you hadn't have documented it and archived it in this kind of way. And visual journaling is just a wonderful way to do that. Some of these images back here were from my time in Greece, and I was just beginning to figure out how visual journaling worked aesthetically, what looked best and how to lay things out on the page, and just full of experimentation and a whole lot of writing, because I just love to write. Let's see, this is also, these little autograph books that you can pick up at garage sales make great little sketchbooks. When people used to call on one another and write little notes in their autograph book, they had little mementos from those people, and I just think that's such a wonderful idea, and they make wonderful sketchbooks now. One of my favorite sketchbooks is one you can actually get at Barnes & Noble, one of those made in India leather journal bound ones that actually have really good strong paper and kind of slightly yellowed paper, not exactly white paper, and I really like that because if a page is too overly white for me, I am completely intimidated and paralyzed, and I can't start. So it helps for me, for some reason, if I have a slightly kind of yellowed page, then I feel a lot more confident just to kind of mess it up and get started. And I oftentimes like to glue big envelopes at the back page, so that when you go on trips, now this one's falling apart, when you go on trips and collect things, you've got a little pocket where you can put all your mementos. Here is a journal that I kept from my time in St. Ives, Cornwall. When I lived there for a couple years, I showed up one day and I didn't leave. It was great. Again, this is a whole lot of writing, but I was just kind of getting my grip on with how visual journaling, suited me, how I wanted to go about keeping a visual journal. So, this one I actually did at the pub, but I liked the drawings in it, and I didn't want to throw them away. So I wanted to be able to see both pictures, so I actually sewed it right into my journal, so I could keep it that way. Again, really nice to find old books. This one's kind of a vintage book I think I found at a garage sale that are empty, that make good journals. Of course, the Moleskine journals that you can find just about anywhere at any art store make wonderful journals too. And I will continue on my little visual journal adventure with you in part 2. So join me in video 2. Thanks for joining. All right, bye.